This was not the same John McCain. He looked at his opponent, looked at him repeatedly and insistently, and he invoked Acorn, William Ayers, class warfare, and incessantly Joe the Plumber, his invisible friend, Joe the Plumber. Sometimes in a frenetic laundry list of sorts, and in the case of his bugaboos Ayers and Acorn, on the defensive after Obama addressed the topic first. Tonight it was not the same John McCain. Unfortunately for John McCain, it was the same Barack Obama. Tonight, John McCain promised no game changer when he needed a game ender, a 10-run homer. Tonight, John McCain said Barack Obama's reaction probably ensured that the subject of William Ayers would come up tonight.
When people suggest that I pal around with terrorists, then we're not talking about issues.
Well, Mr. Ayers, I don't care about an old washed-up terrorist, but as Senator Clinton said in her debates with you, we need to know the full extent of that relationship. We need to know the full extent of Senator Obama's relationship with Acorn, who is now on the verge of maybe perpetrating one of the greatest frauds in voter history in this country, maybe destroying the fabric of democracy.
The night that could be John McCain's last chance or Barack Obama's last hurdle.
A couple of days ago, Senator Obama was out in Ohio, and he had an encounter with a guy who's a plumber. His name is Joe, my old buddy Joe the Plumber. Joe the Plumber. Like Joe the Plumber, people like Joe the Plumber. Joe the Plumber. We're talking about Joe the Plumber.
I'm happy to talk to you, Joe, too, if you're out there.
With Howard Feynman in the spin room at the David S. Mack Sports and Exhibition Complex at Hofstra University. Our special guest, former Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle. The analysis of Eugene Robinson and Rachel Maddow and Pat Buchanan. This is Countdown's coverage of...
Now, what are the issues? There is only one. That man. Who is he? Will you think about that a moment, my friends?
Countdown's coverage of the 49th and final 2008 presidential debate.
By Joe the Plumber.
I don't know about you, but I want to vote for this Joe the Plumber guy. Good evening. This is Wednesday, October 15th, 20 days until the 2008 presidential election, and moments after the third presidential debate, where our first results from uncommitted voters are in, and once again, they are overwhelmingly in favor of Senator Obama as the winner of the debate. A CBS poll of uncommitted voters coming out just moments ago suggesting that Obama was viewed as the winner by 53%, 24% thought it was a tie among the uncommitteds, and 22% thought Senator McCain won. If the Palin-Biden matchup at the start of this month was the Joe six-pack debate, the third and final meeting tonight between Senators Obama and McCain was about Joe the Plumber, also William Ayers and Congressman John Lewis. Our fifth story on this special post-debate edition of Countdown, Senator McCain answering the question of whether he would repeat the most negative attacks of his campaign to Obama's face by repeating the most negative attacks of his campaign to Obama's face. Forget the idea heading in that a sit-down format would lead to a chattier, friendlier exchange. Tonight's debate was tough, it was personal, and for no one was it more personal than Joe Wurzelbacher. McCain called him, erroneously, Wurzelberger. Henceforth, he's known to everybody in the nation as Joe the Plumber. Outside Toledo on Sunday, Mr. Wurzelbacher having approached Senator Obama to ask him about his tax plan, especially how it relates to small businesses. Senator McCain spent the entirety of tonight's debate addressing nearly all of his remarks on taxes and everything else to Joe the Plumber.
Joe the Plumber.
Joe the Plumber.
Joe the Plumber. Joe the Plumber.
Joe the Plumber.
Joe the Plumber. We're talking about Joe the Plumber. Joe, you're rich. Congratulations. Now, Joe, you're rich. Congratulations.
That includes you, Joe.
All right. I want, Joe, you to do the job.
And I'm happy to talk to you, Joe, too, if you're out there.
As we mentioned, the other big name of the night, William Ayers. Yes, Senator McCain went there, the Republican nominee, claiming the tone of his campaign could have been very different if Senator Obama had merely agreed to his request to a series of joint town hall meetings. In other words, Ayers, Acorn, and palling around with terrorists, Senator Obama had it coming. We begin with the Democrats' response.
When people suggest that I pal around with terrorists, then we're not talking about issues. What we're talking about...
Let me just say categorically, I'm proud of the people that come to our rallies. Mr. Ayers, I don't care about an old washed-up terrorist, But as Senator Clinton said in her debates with you, we need to know the full extent of that relationship. We need to know the full extent of Senator Obama's relationship with Acorn, who is now on the verge of maybe perpetrating one of the greatest frauds in voter history in this country, maybe destroying the fabric of democracy.
In a campaign that has become about guilt by association, Obama talking about who he actually associates with.
The reason I think that it's important to just get these facts out is because the allegation that Senator McCain's continually made is that somehow my associations are troubling. Let me tell you who I associate with. On economic policy, I associate with Warren Buffett and former Fed Chairman Paul Volcker. If I'm interested in figuring out my foreign policy, I associate myself with my running mate Joe Biden or with Dick Lugar, the Republican ranking member on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, or General Jim Jones, the former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. Those are the people, Democrats and Republicans, who have shaped my ideas and who will be surrounding me in the White House. And I think the fact that this has become such an important part of your campaign, Senator McCain, says more about your campaign than it says about me.
Senator McCain trying to downplay any association between himself and an associate named President Bush, and effectively so.
Senator Obama, I am not President Bush. If you wanted to run against President Bush, you should have run 4 years ago.
Meantime, Senator McCain called his own running mate, Governor Palin, a, quote, breath of fresh air. Senator Obama pivoting on an exchange about Governor Palin and special needs and turning it into a question about funding and funding freezes.
I think it's very commendable, the work she's done on behalf of special needs. I agree with that, John. I do want to just point out that autism, for example, or other special needs, will require some additional funding if we're going to get serious in terms of research. That is something that every family that advocates on behalf of disabled children talk about. And if we have a across-the-board spending freeze, we're not going to be able to do it.
Joining me now from Hofstra University in Hempstead, the site of this final of the 49 presidential debates of the last 2 years. A man who's been in, I think, every one of them, Howard Fineman of Newsweek and MSNBC. Good evening again, Howard.
Let's have those 10 town hall debates, Keith. Come on.
That's a good idea. More. Setting aside for a moment the draft Joe the Plumber movement that will no doubt spring up tomorrow. Yes. The key tonight, I thought, in terms of strategy in a debate, Obama essentially introduced, almost demanded that McCain address the heirs topic and Acorn. Did this put McCain indeed on the defense? Did it kind of neutralize the issue?
That's all right. Well, I thought that was a brilliant move by Obama. I think we were right before the debate. We were saying that that McCain was basically going to back up, the front-end loader and dump everything out there. It was a whole freight train's worth of stuff. But Obama was ready for it, and that was very shrewd because that forced McCain to concede right off the bat that he didn't care about some washed-up terrorist, which kind of undercut a lot of the rest of what he had to say. And I thought Obama gave his answer. He gave it pretty clearly and forcefully. I must say, most of the American people don't care about William Ayers, and they don't care about Acorn. They hadn't ever heard of Acorn at all. Most of the American people still don't know what Acorn is. And John McCain described it, what was it, as out to perhaps destroy the fabric of democracy. Who knew? Who knew? And so that was not McCain's strongest attack. What McCain did here tonight that the Republicans were pleased about, the Republican faithful, was that he attacked Obama ideologically on every point, saying that Obama was for big government, that Obama was for raising taxes, that Obama basically was a reincarnation of every big spending liberal Democrat in history. There are two problems with that. Number one, it doesn't necessarily comport with Obama's record. And number two, the American people don't seem to want another ideologue right now. They had one with George Bush for 8 years. They don't seem to want that. Obama was a study in shades of gray and calm contrast to McCain, and that seems to be what people are supporting, which is why these dial groups and these early snap polls after the debates always show Obama winning. It's not just his tone, it's that he says, we can do a little of both. We have to prioritize. We have to be careful. It's that kind of careful and calm consideration that the American people seem to like. And even though McCain was scoring ideological points that thrilled his base, and they're happy. They're saying, where was this McCain months ago? Not only is it too late, but it doesn't seem to be the kind of thing that the American people want right now.
McCain's moment, I thought, in this obviously was the set piece about not being Bush. It was very effective, but there were other set pieces that he reached for and kind of stumbled, and most importantly, as we discussed beforehand, whereas he may have presented himself as a largely different McCain, and I think that the base that saw and energized McCain was right. Unfortunately for him, it was the same Obama, and was that maybe this last test? If Obama could not be flapped by either John McCain, that was pretty much the stamp of approval?
He kept his cool, Obama did. There was only one little glimmer of anger there when you played the clip where Obama said, your tactics, Senator, basically say more about you than they say about me. And if you're watching carefully, there was a slight note of anger there. But by the way, on the Bush exchange, David Axelrod, the chief Obama strategist who came running in here, was delighted with that, because then Obama came back and said, well, excuse me, if I mistake you for George Bush, it's because your economic policies are exactly like George Bush's. In the Obama camp's estimation, that was a home run for them. The second half of that exchange they thought was really terrific and helped them. They're going to stand on the relationship between Bush and McCain's going to stand on the relationship between Obama and taxes. That's the rest of the election.
Howard Fineman of Newsweek and MSNBC with the first read from the debate site. Thanks as always, Howard. Very well done.
Thank you, Keith.
Let's turn now to Rachel Maddow, host of MSNBC's Rachel Maddow Show. Rachel, good evening again.
Hi, Keith.
All right, if Bill Ayers was supposed to be a disqualifier in some way, if it was supposed to impact, or Acorn is supposed to be a threat to democracy, as Mr. McCain said tonight, didn't it need to be explained a little bit more? Did the whole strategy get shifted on the burden, the onus of this onto McCain, and did he whiff on it? Because it seemed to me, if you didn't know what he was talking about, you still don't know what he was talking about.
That's right. So the true believers on Acorn, the people who have been reading about it or listening to talk radio or right-wing media about it and are fired up about it, maybe felt like they got a bit of a nod from McCain on that. But if you aren't part of that tiny minority of Americans who approaches this election in that way, you don't have any idea what that was about. And so he did whiff, I think, is the right way to think about that. On Ayers, you know, I interviewed the Obama-Biden communications director today about that. I interviewed Dan Pfeiffer about that today, saying, why are you daring John McCain to bring up William Ayers? Why are you essentially goading him into bringing it up? And he didn't share strategy with me, but he essentially conceded that they think that it would be a good thing for the American people to see John McCain try to go after Barack Obama on that one. Obviously, they were confident that they had a good response to it, and they thought it would make McCain look worse than Obama did. And I think that's what happened. I think they neutralized the whole Ayers issue, and it's sort of over now.
Did Obama, in this debate, let McCain off the hook on a couple of occasions? McCain told the exaggeration of JFK and Goldwater and the town hall agreement, which never happened. They did not agree to it. Goldwater said, I think he would have agreed to it. That was as close as they were got. They may have discussed it. There's no indication of that. He misrepresented what Obama had signed on public financing. He had said he refuted every Republican attack on Obama, which is laughable or dangerously uninformed on that subject. And there was one particular moment when he brought up the $3 million overhead projector, which is, of course, this space-age planetarium device. It's not some sort of opaque projector we use in home ec class. Did he seem to you like he did not, that Obama held punches back, and why would that have been?
I think that he has to make the calculation, and you have to make it on your feet. You have to make it in quick terms, whether or not you're going to score more points by having corrected the record, by having pointed out the mistakes made in the allegation, whether you're going to score more points by doing that than you are going to lose by looking like you are essentially nitpicking the accusations against you. If you want to take on the planetarium thing, for example, you end up talking about the dumb planetarium argument for the length of time it takes you to correct the record on that. So he makes those calculations point by point, and I don't necessarily think that he made bad strategic choices on those ones that you just suggested. I do bristle every time that Obama gives John McCain a compliment on the torture issue, because McCain says that waterboarding is torture. McCain also voted to allow the CIA to do it. Calling that a bold stance against torture, I think, gives McCain a lot of credit that he really doesn't deserve.
Let me run, lastly, for our segment here, some of these early results. We know from a CNN focus group that they had it 15-10 Obama, and 3 people changed their minds as a result of this debate. A Fox focus group, 4 people moved towards Obama, and they described it, they wouldn't release a number, they just said it was a clear majority were in favor of Obama having won this. We saw the initial CNN snap poll was just debate watchers, 58-31 Obama, and always the most interesting one here, the CBS uncommitted numbers, 53 Obama, 24 time, McCain 22. What are the uncommitted voters seeing that maybe those who've already made up their minds here, or the rest of us, don't see anymore?
It may be that people are looking for a specific thing in order to try to bring them toward John McCain. They're waiting for him to say something they think he's capable of saying, and they're not hearing it. And if John McCain can unlock that particular door, maybe you'll have a very good next 19 days. But honestly, my gut feeling about those is that people don't like his temperament, and people don't like him gritting his teeth, grinding his teeth down to sawdust at this point. They don't like him sneering and rolling his eyes and looking mad. And frankly, John McCain looks like he doesn't want Barack Obama to be president more than he looks like he himself wants to be president. And I don't think that creates a good impression. That's just my gut impression of what undecideds may be thinking at this point, but that's what it seems like to me.
It was a little troubling to see McCain not look at Obama in the first 2 debates. I think we just found out it was more disturbing to see him look at Obama during this debate. Rachel, we'll check back with you later in the hour. Pat Buchanan, your faithful sidekick and fake uncle, will be there with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
All right, coming up, tonight's debate as seen through the eyes of each campaign. We'll talk next with the former Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle, obviously from the Obama campaign. This is Countdown's coverage of the final presidential debate. The news reported at this hour from our NBC affiliate in Toledo, Ohio. Joe the plumber has gone to sleep. After 25 mentions during a presidential debate, the man now known as Joe the plumber said it was pretty surreal. He said he still pretty much agreed with Senator McCain's plan as opposed to Senator Obama, and then he went to sleep. There will be no further comment from Joe the plumber this evening. Much of this debate obviously was dealing with tone not in terms of articulation of thought, nor articulation of thought towards the electorate, but tone at election events. And several times, Senator McCain tonight insisted he had done everything he could to keep that tone at its best possible realm.
Every time there's been an out-of-bounds remark made by a Republican, no matter where they are, I have repudiated them. Let me just say categorically, I'm proud of the people that come to our rallies. Whenever you get a large rally of 10, 15, 20,000 people, you're going to have some fringe peoples. You know that. And we've always said that that's not appropriate. There's a lot of things that have been yelled at your rally, Senator Obama, that I'm not happy about either.
We're now joined from the site of this last debate by former Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle, national co-chair for the Barack Obama campaign. Senator, it's a pleasure. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks, Keith. Good to be here.
Were you surprised to hear Senator McCain say that he had repudiated all these attacks and unfair statements against Senator Obama throughout the campaign?
Well, I was, Keith, for a couple of reasons. First, because it's not true, and secondly, he spent 90 minutes tonight on the attack. You know, about 2/3 of the American people think that he's an angry candidate. It looked like for the next 90 minutes he tried to convince the other third he was angry. That was what I got out of this debate tonight.
There was an additional level, though, to it, which, I mean, you can win on an angry candidate wins now and again. But the additional level of trying to turn John Lewis's righteous, perhaps excessive, but righteous and historically first-person account of what can happen when political demagoguery gets out of hand and moves from angry to demagoguery. To turn that around and make himself into the victim in this and insist Senator Obama had done something wrong by not throwing John Lewis under some bus, I thought that was an extraordinary moment and very telling as well.
Well, the entire McCain campaign has been based on half-truths and twisted distortions. This was another classic example. You take what might be factually the beginning of some truth and move it around, turn it around, twist it to a point where you can't recognize it. That's what he did in this case. That's what he did throughout the entire debate tonight.
Did you see any indication that Senator Obama was flustered, moved, taken off his point, taken away from his game by what was clearly a different kind of John McCain tonight?
I think they told John McCain, go for it. You know, what have you got to lose? You're losing right now, so go for it. Try to do something to shake up Barack Obama, get him off his game. He tried just about everything tonight. He looked increasingly frustrated as he did. I almost felt sorry for the guy.
The policy points which inevitably, after we discuss one of these debates, most commentators and analysts tend to leave in the dust. Most of the voters tend to focus on the policy issues, tend to focus on the economic issues and the health care plan. There was an extremely long and pointed exchange about health care plans and whether or not there would be fines, and we had Joe the plumber and whether or not he would be fined. In sum, on those two critical issues, and they're obviously interlocked between health care and the economy, where did the two candidates get their respective points in, and where did they fail to in your impressions?
Well, I think John McCain has attempted to explain his health insurance plan now 4 or 5 different ways, and tonight he did it again. The more he explains, the more confused it gets. I think what Barack Obama did, and I thought it was probably the highlight of the debate for Barack Obama, was to explain with clarity and real compelling arguments why his health plan is so important and why people all across this country ought to listen carefully about the contrast between a John McCain and a Barack Obama. That, to me, was one of the better parts of the entire debate.
Senator Tom Daschle, the national co-chair of the Obama campaign, taking a few moments with us after the debate at Hempstead, Long Island, New York. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Coming up, the view from the other side, what the McCain campaign is saying in this last hour since this last debate finally ended. Countdown's coverage of the 49th presidential debate, the third of Obama versus McCain, continues after this.
All right, gentlemen, today's race is a test of driving skills and ingenuity. When we hit the log road, it was so smooth we didn't feel anything. That's insane. Full-length coil suspension made driving unbelievable. I mean, forget about it.
There was, as we suggested earlier, one complete set point here for Senator McCain in the night's final debate against Senator Obama. At one point, referencing President Bush, as Senator Obama is wont to do, Senator McCain replied, with Senator Obama, I'm not President Bush. If you wanted to run against President Bush, you should have run 4 years ago. About a minute later came the Obama response.
If I occasionally mistaken your policies for George Bush's policies, it's because on the core economic issues that matter to the American people, on tax policy, on energy policy, on spending priorities, you have been a vigorous supporter of President Bush.
We're joined now from the site of the debate, Hofstra University, Hempstead, Long Island, New York, by NBC's Andrea Mitchell, who has been collecting responses from the Republican side of this. And Andrea, let's start with that second half, and more importantly from the Republican point of view, the first half of that exchange in which Senator McCain articulately got that point across that I'm not President Bush. Is that being viewed as the selling point of this debate for the Republicans, or if not, what is?
Sure. That was the line of the debate. That was the line he wanted to put out there to try to finally separate himself from George W. Bush, the extraordinarily unpopular president and this administration. And the problem is, it's probably too little too late, but he did get that line out. Now, of course, Obama came right back and said, you voted for 4 out of 5 Bush budgets. I think that line probably, and Joe the plumber, were the winners of this debate. McCain was wrong, by the way, in saying that that Joe the plumber, and Joe is someone we saw on a rope line in Toledo Sunday night, who felt that the tax plan and perhaps the health insurance plan as well would hurt his small business, and in fact it would not. All the fact-checking that we can do is that that Joe's business would not be hurt in terms of the health insurance aspects regarding the Obama plan. But all the fact-checking aside right now, John McCain came out aggressively, Keith, and really went after Barack Obama, and yet undecided voters, independent voters, the people that he was trying to reach, probably did not like that aggressive attack. In this climate, with this extraordinary environment of what we're seeing on Wall Street, this is not what people apparently want to hear, according to all the polls and all the focus groups, ourselves included.
He got the idea across that he is not President Bush. He did not. I don't know that he got the idea across of exactly who he is in that economic crisis. But I must ask you about Republican reaction to the not necessarily neutering of the Bill Ayers and Acorn issues, but the fact that Obama essentially made it mandatory for McCain to bring them up. And when they came out, they certainly did not come out with any kind of explosive impact that the right would have preferred.
Well, they wanted it out. They wanted all of that stuff on the table. The problem with all of that, as I say, is that that is what people do not want to hear, according to everybody that has been checking with these undecided voters. All of the networks, cables, and broadcast networks have done these focus groups tonight, and they're all saying that they don't want to hear that. They want to hear about the economy. So the base must have been very happy with the defense of Sarah Palin, with bringing up the comments by, the statement by, John Lewis, which most people did think was beyond the pale, and I think that actually John McCain did score some points by saying that that was hurtful. But Obama made the point that there has been a lot of negative attacks. There have been negative attacks from both sides, but primarily in the last couple of weeks from the McCain side. So the Republican base, Keith, was probably very happy with this. But those are not the people that John McCain needed to reach.
An excellent point. Andrea Mitchell with some of that Republican reaction from the debate. Thank you, Andrea. Have a good night.
Same to you.
Eugene Robinson of the Washington Post next. Did he see anything that voters will look to change the trajectory of the race in the last 20 days? And what does he think about Joe the Plumber? This is Countdown's coverage of the Joe the Plumber debate. Just play it.
Joe the Plumber.
Joe the Plumber.
Joe the Plumber. Joe the Plumber.
Joe the Plumber.
Joe the Plumber. We're talking about Joe the Plumber. Joe, you're rich. Congratulations. Now, Joe, you're rich. Congratulations.
That includes you, Joe.
All right. I want, Joe, you to do the job.
And I'm happy to talk to you, Joe, too, if you're out there.
Gene, the columnist, joins us now. Eugene Robinson, columnist, associate editor for the Washington Post, also political analyst for MSNBC. Good evening, Gene. He was the second